In 1996, burdened by financial strain and a sense of growing desperation, I accepted a part-time job as a weekend companion to an elderly woman named Anna May. I was 20 years old, broke, and still undecided on a major in college. The job paid $20 per evening, under the table, and promised minimal effort. Anna didn't require medical attention or constant supervision, only company on Saturday and Sunday nights while her family was out. She lived in a well-kept house with her son, a sharp-dressed, clean-cut lawyer, and his 3 young children. I was interviewed briefly by the son, but it was Anna who chose me. She sat in a rocking chair, humming some forgotten tune, knitting, and smiling as she approved me with a single nod. I remember thinking I had lucked into something easy. At first it was. Anna told me stories from her youth, tales of wartime, old train rides, and childhood pranks. She was highly religious, insisting on prayer before every meal, and her faith often seemed to guide her moods. But as the weeks went on, I began to notice things that didn't make sense. Subtle at first, sudden shifts in energy, strange behavior, out-of-place statements, and an odd fixation on her forehead cross, which she kept long after Ash Wednesday had passed. Her humming turned from charming to unnerving, off-key, discordant, and repetitive. She began displaying odd rituals, raising her hands above her head, and staring at me as if caught in some trance. Once, during dinner, she pointed her knife toward me, too many times to be harmless, her expression shifting from playful to hollow. The neighbors moved out by the 3rd weekend, and the silence in the neighborhood only magnified my discomfort. The absence of any lights in the nearby windows made the house feel isolated and strange. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, always alert to small changes in her behavior, her smell, her tone, even her nail color, which appeared to change without explanation between white and deep red during the same evening. She often insisted she didn't need help fetching things, and when she returned from another room, her appearance sometimes seemed altered. Swollen eyes, disheveled hair, makeup slightly different. I started to memorize how she looked at the beginning of each night. Still, each time she re-entered a room, something about her was off. The photos became my obsession. She kept them in a discolored, beat-up shoebox tucked away in her closet. Occasionally, she'd offer to share her memories with me, describing people and places in rich detail. Yet certain photos she refused to show. She would glance at them, widen her eyes, then quietly move them to the bottom of the stack. Her stories became more confusing. She would reference a sister, someone close, but never clearly explained. She talked to herself behind doors. Sometimes I would overhear her from the hallway, speaking as though someone else were there. On more than one occasion, I saw her standing in front of a hidden cabinet or crawl space that I had never thought to open. By the 4th weekend, I was on edge constantly. The strangest event came one night when I was using the blender. I felt a presence behind me the entire time. So heavy. So real. When I finally turned around, I found Anna sitting in her chair, motionless, mouth open, eyes wide, looking every bit like a corpse. Just as I reached for the phone to call emergency services, I saw her outside the window. She stood in the driveway, twisted her neck unnaturally, and stared at me. Same face, same structure, same woman. Moments later, the dead Anna came to life again, laughing in a raspy tone that didn't sound like her usual voice. She claimed it was all a prank. She laughed about it like a child. The behavior became too much. One night, I drugged her tea lightly, not to harm, just to investigate while she was asleep. But as I sneaked into her room to retrieve the shoebox of photos, I heard her voice from the top of the stairs. I froze. She was supposed to be asleep in the den. Panicked, I discovered that the closet's crawl space led to a basement. I ran down, and at the bottom, in pitch black, I collided with a frail figure. Another woman. The same scent I'd smelled on Anna's clothing the week before hung thick in the air. She tried to hold me back as I forced open the cellar door and crawled through a narrow hole to escape. Outside, under the night sky, I realized I wasn't imagining any of it. At home, I opened the shoebox. Among the dozens of old photographs was a picture that changed everything. My girlfriend found it first. Anna was there, but so were 3 more women who looked exactly like her. Identical. The same eyes, same face, same everything. They weren't sisters in the metaphorical sense. They were quadruplets, living in the same house, swapping clothes, routines, and personalities without ever telling anyone, playing games with me, pretending to be one woman, and I'd never known the difference. If you felt something watching you during this story, you're not alone. Strange things tend to happen after people hear these tales. So before your lights flicker or your screen goes dark, comment and share it, so you're not the only one haunted. And whatever you do, subscribe before midnight, because they always notice the quiet ones. Despite what some might tell you, it's not actually so bad to work in this field. Sure, some of the elderly can be difficult at times, and like any other job, this one has its stomach-churning moments, but most of them are sweethearts. All it takes is a little compassion and patience to break through to them. So yeah, I mostly love this job. I wouldn't give it up if I could help it. The only part I've never gotten used to is what happens after they pass. There's this rule we follow in the facility. Whenever someone dies in one of the residential rooms, we deep clean it, clear out their belongings, and leave the room untouched for at least a full week before assigning it again. No matter how long the wait list is, no matter how many people are moving in, some say it's just to give staff time to process and grieve. Others say it's more respectful that way. But a few nurses who've been here longer than me, they never say why. They just follow the rule, like it's carved in stone. That silence is what made me start noticing things. And what happened in room 216 is what made me never forget. A woman named Margaret died in 216. A sweet old lady with a sharp memory, sharper wit, and a knitted red shawl she wore every single day. She passed quietly in her sleep one night. No distress, no code blue, just gone when we checked her in the morning. After she passed, I helped box up her things. Her reading glasses, crossword books, framed photos, but I forgot her shawl. I didn't realize until 2 days later, during the night shift, when I walked past the empty room and saw something red hanging off the edge of the recliner chair inside. The door was closed, locked even. It should have been empty. But the shawl was there, neatly folded over the same spot where she always sat. I unlocked the door, assuming maybe someone had mistakenly dropped it back in. But as soon as I stepped in, the room felt wrong. Not just cold, but humming, like an electrical buzz under my skin, like something was holding its breath. I reached for the shawl, and just as my hand touched it, the chair creaked. I froze, slowly turned. It was the exact sound it used to make when she shifted in it every evening before dinner. The chair was empty. The light in the corner of the room flickered. Once, then again. Then it went out completely. I took the shawl and walked straight out, locking the door behind me, heart thudding in my chest, like I'd run up 6 flights of stairs. I didn't report anything. I told myself it was the old wiring, and my nerves playing tricks on me. A few nights later, another nurse passed by room 216 and said she heard the buzzer going off from inside. You know, the call button they press when they need assistance. Except the buzzer system was already disabled. We unplug them once the room is cleared, so the console doesn't chirp for no reason. But she swore she heard it. I checked. The console light was off. The room was still locked. But when I peeked through the door's narrow window, I swear I saw something move. Not a shadow. Not a trick of the light. Something moved just past the edge of the bed. I started hearing footsteps when I was alone in the corridor near 216. Light ones, like slippers brushing against the linoleum. They always stopped when I turned around. And then one night, around 3:40 a.m., I walked past the room again and saw the TV was on inside. Static. No sound, just black and white snow buzzing behind the glass. No one had been in there. No one could have turned it on. I unlocked the door to turn it off. The second I stepped in, the door behind me slowly clicked shut. And that same low hum came back. That electric buzz in the air. I didn't even touch the remote. I backed out of that room like it was a lion's den and didn't breathe until I was back at the nurse's station. We held the room for 2 full weeks before assigning it again. A man named George moved in. Quiet, didn't ask for much, just liked to sit near the window. But 3 nights later, he rang his buzzer in a panic. Said a woman had been sitting in the corner of the room all night, just watching him. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. She just sat there, wrapped in a red shawl. We moved him out of 216 the same morning. Since then, it's become the one room we never assign unless we absolutely have to. We say it's for plumbing issues, or a broken heater. We say anything except the truth. Sometimes the dead don't want to leave, and sometimes their chairs remember. They told me not to overthink things on the night shift. People are old, they forget, they repeat, they do strange things. That's the nature of aged care. Routine, memory loss, loneliness. But no one had an explanation for her. She wasn't technically a patient, more like a private tenant, a long-term boarder with a family estate and no living relatives. She'd been in the facility longer than most of the staff had worked there, some longer than we'd even been alive. 89, fully lucid, sharp as a tack, and always seated beside the window in room 16. That was her place. From sunrise to past midnight, always in the same upright position, never sleeping. Not once in the 6 months I worked there did anyone catch her lying in bed. It started as a curiosity, an anecdote shared between tired aides during midnight coffee. Someone would say they'd never seen her sleep. Another would chime in about the time she sat motionless for an entire shift, eyes wide, unblinking, face pale as porcelain. Eventually, it stopped being funny. Night staff came and went. Some stayed barely 2 weeks before transferring to other wings or quitting altogether. They said she whispered to herself, repeating words no one understood. Others claimed she repeated their own words back to them before they had even spoken them. One cleaner left in the middle of her shift after hearing her mimic the voice of her son. Her son had passed away years ago. I dismissed most of it. Sleep deprivation can play tricks on your mind. But there was one thing I couldn't shake. Her eyes, wide, still, unnaturally glossy. She didn't blink, not even under the flickering hallway lights that cast shadows through her window every 10 seconds. The motion sensor light outside that room had always been temperamental, so the shadows stuttered and twisted across her face. Still, she never blinked. Staff started draping a blanket over her around midnight, just to be decent. We'd find it the next night, folded neatly, dry and untouched, placed outside her door on the floor. It wasn't like someone had kicked it off in their sleep. It was deliberate. Crisp corners, symmetrical folds, every single time. Then came the mirror incident. One of the newer aides, young and fresh out of training, told me she'd seen the woman's reflection in the window, but the reflection was standing. Said it stared directly at her while the woman sat motionless in the chair. I didn't believe her at first, but she was gone by the end of the week. No notice. Didn't even collect her paycheck. I tried not to look in the windows after that. Tried not to think about the chair. Tried not to imagine her waiting, watching, remembering. Because that's the thing. She remembered everything. Dates, names, stories, even staff who had only worked one shift a year ago. Once I found a journal in her drawer, not filled with thoughts or memories, but names. Names of staff. Dates beside each one. All the dates were the last day those people worked in her wing. When she passed, it wasn't peaceful. She just stopped. They found her still, sitting up, eyes wide, skin colder than usual. The paramedics couldn't close her eyes. They tried. I saw the effort. But something behind those lids didn't want to let go. Her room stayed empty for a while. Some said it was out of respect. Others claimed no one wanted to clean it. But eventually, a new patient moved in. A frail, confused woman with early-stage dementia. She started complaining almost immediately. Said someone else was in the room with her. Said she couldn't sleep because the woman in the corner kept watching her. There was no chair in the corner. We'd removed it the day after she died. In fact, the corner was empty, completely bare. But the new patient wouldn't stop. She pointed again and again toward that corner. We moved her to another room after a week. She started sleeping again, quietly, peacefully. Room 16 is still in use. Cleaned, renovated, repainted. But I've noticed something. Every so often, the night staff changes the linens. And every so often, a folded blanket appears outside the door. Dry. Perfectly creased. I never saw her sleep. And now, I'm not sure she ever did. Or that she ever needed to. I've worked in aged care for over a decade now. And let me tell you, you think you've seen everything until something shows you just how wrong you are. Her name was Margaret, 91 years old, severe dementia, nonverbal, the kind of case you read about in training manuals, but never quite believe until you're face to face with it. She never spoke, never moved much, just sat in her wheelchair day in and day out, head tilted forward, hands resting like soft weights on the armrests, eyes somewhere far beyond our reach. She came in about 6 months before it happened. Quiet transfer from another facility. No fuss, no visitors after the first few weeks. I don't think her family meant to abandon her, but over time, you could see the way they withdrew. Phone calls slowed, then stopped. Cards came late. Eventually, not at all. Margaret didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did. Maybe we just didn't understand how. Then came her birthday. Someone, probably one of the weekend volunteers, thought it'd be a sweet gesture to gather a few of us and sing happy birthday for her. Just a small thing, something warm. She didn't have any visitors that day. No cards, no balloons. Just a cupcake with a candle and a circle of staff standing around the lounge. We wheeled her in. She looked the same as always. Blank, silent, disconnected. Then we lit the candle and started singing. And that's when everything changed. The moment we hit the first line. Happy birthday to you. Margaret sat up. I mean snapped upright, ramrod straight, like something pulled her up by invisible strings. Her eyes were wide open, focused, alive in a way I had never, ever seen. Then she started singing, clear as day, loud, every word perfectly in tune. Her voice was high, almost too perfect, like a recording played back through her body. No tremble, no struggle, just precise, mechanical delivery, over and over again. Happy birthday to you. We all froze. One of the nurses, Carla, tried to gently stop her, reaching for her hand. That's when Margaret screamed. This horrible, raw sound, not pain, not confusion. Rage. Her face twisted, her eyes rolled back until only the white showed, but she didn't miss a beat. She just kept singing. Happy birthday to you. Again and again. Louder. Faster. Like the song was feeding on itself. The lights above us started flickering. You might think it's coincidence. Old wiring, maybe. But the whole room dimmed. The temperature dropped so fast the windows fogged up. My breath misted. I could see it. In August. No one spoke. We just stared, paralyzed, as Margaret kept going. Voice still perfect, tone rising to this fever pitch. Finally, someone, I think it was Amanda, grabbed the back of her wheelchair and rushed her out of the lounge. The moment she crossed the threshold, she slumped back into silence. Limp again, eyes blank. That fast. It was like nothing had happened. No one said a word for the rest of the shift. We just avoided the lounge. I found Carla crying in the break room half an hour later, shaking. Margaret died a few months later, peacefully in her sleep. At least, that's what the night nurse said. But that's not the end of it. Every year on August 3rd, at exactly 3:33 p.m., the lounge speakers turn on by themselves. Not loud. Just this faint, warped, broken version of the birthday song. It plays through once. Always. Just once. And here's the thing. There's no file. It's checked. There's nothing in the system. No scheduled playback. No connected device. No hidden source. The first time it happened, maintenance pulled the whole ceiling open. Nothing. We tried unplugging the system. Didn't matter. Still played. It's always the same tone. The same glitchy voice. The same note-perfect pitch. No one sings in the lounge anymore. Doesn't matter whose birthday it is. And every year, on that day, every one of us finds an excuse to not be in there when the clock hits 3:33. Some things in this job stay with you. The good, the bad, the heartbreaking, and the things that defy reason, those are the ones that haunt you.